Welcome to the One Player Podcast, the show on solitaire board games. I'm your host, Albert, and this is episode 388.
You shall not pass!
I said, I know which quote Julius is going to use. There's no doubt about this. And I was so right. Oh, man. It's such a good one, though. That's right. Everybody stop and listen. We're going to talk about the fate of the Fellowship, the Lord of the Rings pandemic game. And if there's one thing we like doing around on the show is we love talking about pandemics and pandemic games. Right?
Deep sigh about that.
Yeah, and then not really, but yeah, we've talked about most of them. I know at least one we haven't.
We literally have, yes.
We haven't really done the Fall of Rome, and we haven't done the one about the
I have
the
no interest in doing
them.
I have no interest in doing them, so convince me that this one's different.
Okay, and we haven't done the Star Wars one, right? So yeah, there's a lot we left out. So anyway, that's what we're talking about today. As I said, this is a pandemic game. It's based on the Lord of the Rings, as Julius, hinted at, and it is very literally based on the Lord of the Rings, the whole novels, in which you're playing through that story specifically. It's not like set in that world or something. It is that story, which I think is super great. So in that case, there's a lot to this game. Let's just jump into the components. It's a pretty big box. We could probably fit in there. My cat has. So, okay. So first thing is, I've mentioned there's a box. You get a box. It's about the size of a pandemic box. It is.
We have never reviewed the box before, Albert.
Oh, we mentioned the box many times. It's slightly bigger and twice as tall. So you can literally fit 2 copies of Pandemic in that box. That's how big it is. Slightly bigger, slightly wider, which means it doesn't stack in the shelf well. But whatever. Okay, inside that box, you're going to find a large board. I think it unfolds 6 times. It is a really pretty map of Middle Earth. This being a pandemic type game. And I hope folks have played Pandemic, because we're going to keep saying, oh, it's pandemic-like. It's like, this is just like how Pandemic works. If you haven't played Pandemic, that's make it a little harder. You know what? Yesterday, I was at Goodwill, and I found a copy of Pandemic. So how about we give it away? How about we do that? If you haven't played Pandemic, and you're not sure what we're saying when we talk about it's like Pandemic, as you listen to this episode, pause, go win my copy of Pandemic. I'm going to give it away. Send me an email. And when you win, you can come back and finish listening. Does that sound fair? Okay.
Albert, I really wonder about you some days. That was so random.
Yeah, well, it just occurred to me. I haven't inventoried it yet. It might be missing pieces. I'm sorry if I give you a copy of missing pieces, but we'll fix that before I ship it out. Don't worry. It won't be missing pieces when you get it.
I'm sorry if I ship you with missing pieces, but I won't send you with missing pieces.
Yeah, I know. It makes no sense. Whatever. Go with it.
As long as Albert is aware of it.
Send me an email. What is it? Albert@oneplayerpodcast.com. Tell me something, not just that you want to enter in the contest. Tell me something about, I don't know, your experience with pandemics or how you feel about Lord of the Rings or whatever. Make it somehow sort of related to this contest. And you'll be in. And then, we'll read out the answers. More or less. I tend to paraphrase those. Anyway, so it's got a really nice board. That's where I was talking about. It's a really large board. It's got a lot of locations on it with connections. The board actually has regions, and then within each of the regions, there's multiple locations. Those matter because as you're playing, you can have cards that reference the regions. All the locations are connected on the map by arrows, sort of like the roads and stuff, so you could go from different region to different region. The board also has space for the tracks, where you track like the bad stuff level and how close you are to dying. Those are
the
called
bad
threats
stuff level.
and hope tracks. It is,
appropriately generic Pandemic, that it's just the bad stuff level and the good stuff levels. Okay.
That's right. There's space for the cards. There's the bad stuff cards, which these are oversized cards. We'll get to that a little bit. And then there's the player cards. There's also places to put those. So again, really pretty, very attractive board. I really like it a lot. As I've been playing it, I'm saying, oh, so that's where that place is. I've read about it. I kind of remember. I didn't really have a sense of where it was. I've learned a lot about Middle Earth geography, which I appreciate, from this board. Okay, probably one of the shiniest components is a dice tower. The game brings a dice tower that looks like Barad-dûr, the place where Sauron lived, the tall tower with the burning eye floating on top. You get to build it
Why?
out of cardboard. Why? Because
Why?
they wanted to make the game as shiny as they could, really. It is cardboard. It's a little bit hard to put together. I mean, if you follow the directions carefully, you'll get it done probably. Read the directions first, then build it. And as you're going, take your time, because I was doing it and I got to one point where I missed a thing and I had to go back up. And it being cardboard and pieces slotting into each other, it's easy to get damaged. I was able to fix it by using some glue and being real slow. And it works great now. But yeah, that's a component that could have been left out, and that would have been just fine. And I would have been
Yeah,
totally happy with
I
it.
do not understand why this is included. This seems like the silliest extra thing to
It is.
include.
It is. And it's kind of fun to roll. And it does keep all the dice organized. They're not rolling all over the place. So there's some utility to it, but mostly it's eye candy. It really is. Eye candy that's hard to put together, and if you mess it up, thankfully you don't need it. Okay, so the dice tower. There's a dice tower, so you know what this game brings? Julius doesn't know. Dice. It brings dice.
You're right. That should have been the obvious answer, but I guess I just didn't get there fast enough.
So it's got 3 battle dice and 7 search dice. They're all custom dice with unique faces on them. That is 2 different sets of unique faces. So there's 2 different types of dice. There's a bunch of cube-sized meeples. In Pandemic, you get little tiny cubes. Here, they have meeples that serve pretty much the same purpose as Pandemic. You're gonna put them on the board. They come in different colors and different shapes. There's 35 friendly troops in 4 different colors. There's elves, dwarves, Rohan, and what are the other guys? I forget what the other guys, the blue guys, are called, but they're there. So there's meeples for each of those. There's also 48 Shadow Troop meeples, which are little tiny orcs, and those are red. You will place these on the board as you're playing, and the bad meeples, the red cubes, can spread throughout the board as you're playing and cause you trouble. Besides the cubes, then there's cards. There's there's like 90 or so oversized cards, sort of tarot size. Not exactly. They're as wide as a regular playing card, but taller. 24 of these are objective cards. This is one thing that's different from normal Pandemic, but is apparently also in the Star Wars Pandemic. When you play, you're gonna always have one of the objectives is you got to destroy the Ring of Mount Doom, and then you draw 3 more random objectives from a set of them. They're all things that happen in the stories. For example, get Saruman out of Orthanc where he lives, or save Minas Tirith, or threaten Sauron at the gates of Mordor. Different things. Go through Mirkwood, whatever. Go to Moria and defeat the Balrog. So there's different objectives. 24 each time. You're using 4 different ones. So it's going to be a lot of variety from game to game. There's 13 different character cards. They represent a lot of different characters in the books, and they each have different abilities. So like Pandemic, each row has a different thing that they could do, something special. One thing that's interesting here, when you draw your objective cards, some of the objective cards, I guess about half of them, will say, oh, if you have this objective, you then have to use a specific character that goes with it. For example, one of the objectives is when Eowyn, I think it's her, kills one of the Black Riders. If you get that objective, then you have to have Eowyn in the game. So that sort of thing. Yeah. All right. So we talked about the character cards. Then there's 10 reference cards, 2 per player. So it's a 1 to 5 player game. There's 50 shadow cards. This is the bad stuff card that I mentioned. And they're interesting because they're multi-purpose, I guess you could say. How you use them depends as you're playing the game. And we'll get into that later. There's 74 player cards. 48 of them are regions. 14 are events. And 12 of them are Skies Darken, which is the bad stuff is going to happen card. There's 12 of them, not because you see 12 of them into your deck, because they're all a little bit different. Each time you draw one, it's going to tell you add cube somewhere on the board, and there's 12 different possible locations. Okay, so that's all the cards. One interesting thing about the cards, well, we'll get to it when we talk about the insert. There's tokens and markers, little cardboard shits and that sort of thing. Nothing special to talk about. They're pretty enough. They're small. There's 13 character meeples, so you get one meeple per character card. They're each a different color, and they're shaped meeples. They also have stickers on them already. Besides that, there's 9 plastic Nazguls on stands. They fly. Wow, okay. Basically, they're like, again, they're more shiny stuff. They didn't need to be little plastic guys on stands, but they are. They take up a little bit of space because of those stands, but, again, whatever. They definitely are functional with the way they
and
are.
I assume that the stands don't interfere with the board or anything like that.
If they weren't on stands, they would still interfere with the board. Doesn't make any difference.
Is the fact that they interfere with the board make it harder to play with them? Like, is it an unpleasant playing experience because of those things?
Sometimes the spaces get really crowded, depending on what region they go to. If they all start crowding into the same region, then you got these 9, potentially up to 9 Nazgul in one region. It can be pretty crowded. If they were instead, for example, stackable counters, it would be more easy to play sometimes. So yeah, they can get a little bit in the way.
But less fun with a question mark.
Sure. Yeah. Yes. I think they'll be. I think the fact that they're cool looking figures is adds to the fun. Unnecessary, but fun. But playing games is about having fun. So who am I to judge, right? Okay. Stronghold tokens. There's a bunch of stronghold tokens. You could take over the enemy locations. The enemies could take yours. So there's a dozen of those, 6 of each type. There's a cardstock insert. This is the cheap insert. It's a very cheap insert. It's just cardboard. And it's a few pieces of cardboard that sort of slot into each other together. It's kind of weird. There's space for everything. But one thing that's weird, there's a couple of things that are weird, I guess. One of them is, at one end, there's a space for the cards. They're like 2 little rectangular slots where you can just slide the cards into. There's a long one for the tall cards and a short one for the short cards, and they fit perfectly. However, if you sleeve your cards, it says in the rulebook, you won't be able to fit them that way anymore. You'll then want to just put all the short ones in the big space and the small space and put the tall ones in the box over here. And that's what I ended up doing. I ended up sleeving the cards and did that. So it's kind of weird that they didn't shape it different with the assumption that you might sleeve them. But I don't know, whatever. It is a tight fit. Once you have everything in there, it is pretty crowded. The other interesting thing is the way the Nazgul are stored in a little cardboard box. Very thin cardboard, cardstock, basically. Maybe like a 110-pound paper sort of weight. It's very light. Like the kind of box that playing cards would come in, for example. So anyway, they come in that box. There's plenty of space in there for them, so they're not going to be really crowded and have to work in fitting them in there. They'll fit just fine. And that also protects them because they have that little box, which is nice. Because otherwise, I could see them getting damaged. So that was an interesting choice, that insert. But it's functional. I'm almost tempted to throw it away, but because of things like the dice tower that's kind of fragile and those Nazgul, I'm just going to keep it the way it is. That, I believe, is it for the components. Any questions, Julius? Are you excited by the game now?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay.
No. I mean, you still haven't told me why it's not just yet another pandemic. That's really what I want to hear. That's really what I hope you're going to be giving me.
Okay, well, next, the theme. Here's my notes. Wow. Just wow. I wrote that down. I find it extremely thematic. I find it like you feel like you're in the story of the books. You go through many of the pivotal moments in the book as you're playing. The gameplay is set up in such a way that the theme comes across really well. The whole theme of battles going on in Middle-earth while the hobbits are slowly trying to get their way to Mount Doom to destroy that ring. It does as you play sometimes just feel insurmountable and just amazing that can happen in the game and in the books. So I think thematically it's fantastic. It's probably thematically the best Lord of the Rings game I've ever played. Actually, not even probably, for sure, 100%. Okay. How about the rules then? The rule book, it's Z-Man Games, So it's what you're gonna expect. It's well done. It's very functional. It works well. It does a good job of explaining the setup step by step, like all the pandemics do and all that. It gives you instructions on how to play solo. All that is in there. It's easy to learn. The solo sections are at the end, but as you're playing, it tells you here's where solo would be different in this or that. It kind of mentions that a little bit. It's not going to be hard to jump in and play just solo at all. So yeah, I'm happy with the rulebook. Okay, then the meat of the games is the gameplay. So we'll start with the setup. You're going to shuffle all the bad stuff cards and put them on the board face down. There's two cards that are different. One is Sauron and one is Saruman. Those go straight into the discard pile. You're going to put meeples on the board. The board tells you exactly what meeples start where. There's a little icon showing you each type of figure, like a little gray icon for the dwarves. And you can see where they go in each space. So you set up all the meeples on the board, all the good meeples and the bad meeples. Then you go through those bad stuff cards, and you draw 9 of them. And I think they might be called threat cards or something. But you draw 9 of them, and each of them will have a location. You'll put one meeple with that location. So now, and those cards go straight into the discard, right? Again, similar to the way Pandemic works. Pandemic, I think you do 3 meeples and 3 cubes and 2 cubes and 1 cube at each set of 3 locations. Here it's just 1 each. You'll shuffle up the location cards, add in some event cards depending on the number of players, deal out cards to the players. You will shuffle in the cards that trigger the bad events. What are those cards called again? The Skies Darken cards. You're going to shuffle in
the bad cards.
5 of them. Yeah, the bad cards. You're going to shuffle them evenly. So I think the starting is 4. They say you could try 5 for a little harder. I think 5 is the normal, 4 is the introductory. I will say that I have fallen back into the normal mode or introductory mode because I cannot beat it. So I find it hard. You will now draw the quest cards. You always have to destroy the One Ring, so that's one of your 4 quests. You will randomly choose 3 others. If this is the first time you play, there's 3 that they recommend. They're marked with a star in the top corner, so you know which 4 to play with. I think those are good ones because thematically, they're the most, probably some of the most important things in the stories, and it does a good job of giving you a feel for it. The other ones tend to be maybe a little more obscure events in the book. Not tons more, but yeah, not the biggest points. Anyway, so you're gonna pick 3 of those. If you want to play in the harder difficulty, I think normal, or no, I think extreme it was. You could do an extra. You could do 5 total. As I said, depending on which ones you draw, or if you wanted to pick them, you may have to use specific characters. It'll tell you which ones to use. Some of them will also alter the setup, say maybe put some extra cubes somewhere, or take some cubes out of the stockpile and put them on the card and they're unavailable, or different things. Each quest is going to work differently. That they'll tell you have to do something. It may be the characters have to play a card in 3 different locations on the board. Once they've done that, this quest is completed. One of them, once she defeats a Nazgul, that quest is completed. There's one for Boromir Dine. If he is in the combat and all the good meeples are destroyed in combat, he dies and you've completed that quest. So on and so forth. They're all different. When you complete a quest, you'll always get a reward from it. Most of the time, the reward includes gaining a hope. Hope is one of the tracks on the board. If it runs out,
it's the good track.
It's a good track, but if it's also it's like the outbreak track in Pandemic. If it runs out completely, you will die. It starts at 6. It could go up to 8. When you complete a quest, you could get it raised back up. But you got your quest picked out. Now that you got your quest, you know which characters you have to play with, and then you shuffle out and pick the rest randomly or pick them yourself. This game is a little bit different here than the normal Pandemics or other Pandemics. Each person is going to have 2 characters in a multiplayer game. So each person will get 2 cards. In a solitaire game, it works different, and I'll get to that a little later. But let's just say that each person has 2 characters. And once you've done all this stuff, I may have forgotten some of the small things, but you're ready to go. Players have their cards. Determining who starts first is you look at the cards that you have, and each card at the bottom has a number, and some information like 9, the number of Nazgul, or 111, yeah, Bilbo's age at the time of the party, or when the book starts, or whatever. Everybody looks at the cards. Whoever has the lowest number is the first player. That's the only thing that part is used for. Other than that, just fun information. When you play, your goal to win the game is just to complete the 4 quests. So you have to do them all. The last one always has to be destroy the ring, which is just like the game, like the books. On your turn, what you could do is you take actions, again, like a pandemic. However, I mentioned you have 2 characters. You always do 1 action with one of the characters and 4 actions with the other. You get to decide which one does 1 and which one does 4, and in which order. But you have to complete the 4 sequentially. You can't. You got to do the 1 and then the 4, or the 4 and then the 1. You couldn't do 2, 1, and 2 or something like that. One character has to finish completely. The actions include things like moving on the board, initiating combat, recruiting characters, not characters, but the meeples, armies to fight for you. Doing those things. So moving, you could always just move a space. Recruiting a meeple, you discard there's 4 suits of cards. There's 4 different symbols. There's hearts, rings, swords, and little elvish sleeves. Kind of looks like a piece of lembas or something, which represents searching and hiding. To recruit a new person, you would play a card with a heart. If you want to do combat, you just say you're doing combat. You have cubes at that location that are friendly, and you have cubes at that location that you want to attack. And then you can do a combat there. You also have to have a character at that space. Somebody to lead the combat, I guess. Besides that, there may be special actions associated with the quest. Some characters have special actions. For example, Merry and Pippin's special action is they could always gain a heart. I mentioned there's the 4 suits for the cards. There's also counters for them. If you gain a heart, you just gain a little heart counter, and now you have that as a generic card. You can have to spend whenever you need to spend a heart. One of the other things you could do is gather resources or something. At a location that's a fort, you could play a card of any suit, and you gain a token of the same suit. So now you've converted that card into a token you can use in the future. It costs you an action, but that's handy to do because you have that hand limit of 7 cards just like in every other pandemic. So if you're getting full, it's something you could do to free up your hand. Goodness, what else? Okay, so I described the actions, how they work. Once you've taken your actions, this is pandemic, you draw 2 cards from the player deck. If one of them is a Skies Darken card, oh no, bad stuff happens. You add some cubes on the board, you raise that threat track, and you shuffle the discard of bad cards together and put it on top of the deck, and now you start drawing bad cards. If that happens another time, instead of drawing 2 bad stuff cards each turn, you'll now draw 3. And 4 eventually. Okay, so you draw your 2 cards. If they're not or bad, go ahead and draw 2 cards from that bad stuff deck. Now these are a little different in that there's 2 different backs to the cards. All the cards have either a picture that's very much dark and gray or dark blacks and stuff, and a red. One has a red banner on the top, and I think one has a red banner in the bottom. It's either or. When you draw the top card, you flip it over, and there's information on the top and the bottom. You look at the next card in the deck, and if the red is on top, you're going to do the top half of the card you just drew. If the next card in the deck has the red on the bottom, you'll do the bottom half of the card you just drew. So that adds a little bit to the randomness. The top half generally says you're going to move cubes, and they're going to advance on the board. The bottom half tells you to add cubes and potentially also move the Nazgul around. Actually, pretty much move the Nazgul around or cause them to search for you. For Frodo. The top half, I think, is a little more interesting. That's different. This is actually something that originally came out in the Fall of Rome pandemic. Instead of the cubes of each type existing in a region and sort of spreading out from there, and here, the cubes of bad stuff, the orcs or the enemies, will be made in a specific location, and from there spread out, right? And there's the board that I mentioned has connections. Some of these connections are colored paths, and for example, if you draw the card for, I don't remember any of the bad locations right now. I know. How about Orthanc? Orthanc is a bad location? Probably. Yeah, it is. Or the White Wizard's Tower. It has a different name too. So if you draw that location, it'll say, okay, move the troops along the yellow track. So you start at the Wizard's Tower and move all the cubes there, one space to the next space on that path. Then any cubes that were on that space move forward, and so on and so forth. So everybody along that path advances on a front. Sort of like one of those States of Siege games from Victory Points, even. It's a little bit of combination of the two things. So the orcs are all advancing from wherever they started, from wherever their spawn points, to destinations where they're going to try and capture your forts. If they advance onto you, there's combat, right? So let's talk about the combat. I mentioned you could also attack them. Combat's pretty simple. You roll dice equal to the number of units attacking. So if you're attacking them, you roll, and you have 2 units, you roll 2 dice. If they're attacking you and they have 3 units, roll 3 dice. There's only 3 dice for combat, so if there's ever more than that number of units, you still just roll 3. And that'll be the full combat. The dice will have you remove units. Hopefully, you're removing the enemy units. Often, you also have to remove player units. And it's pretty simple. You just remove units based on the symbols on the dice. There's some things that might modify that a little bit. For example, if there's a Nazgul, you might have to remove extra friendly units if there's a Nazgul in that region. But otherwise, that's the whole combat, and it was really simple. For the bad guys, you roll ones. If you're doing combat, you take an action to do combat. Hopefully, you killed all the enemy. If not, you could choose to take another action to do combat again, and that's how that works. So I pretty much explained the turn. Once that is done, it goes on to the next player, and they do this. They repeat the process over and over and over until the game ends. Hopefully in victory. So in a summary, the turn is choose one of your characters, take its 4 actions, choose another character, take its 4 actions. Your goal is to complete those quests, so that may involve going to specific regions or fighting with specific types of units, say dwarves or Rohan or whatever. Or it may mean going to a certain location and defeating the enemy at that location and taking over their fort and turning it into a friendly fort. It depends on the scenario. Once you have finished all 3 but the last scenario, you now need to finish that last one to win the game. That last one is destroying the ring at Mount Doom. The way that happens is Frodo and Sam have to make it all the way to that Mount Doom space and take a special action by spending 5 ring cards and then rolling dice to see if you succeed. The dice are the search dice. That's the other one. There's 7 of them. And I didn't really talk about them before, but occasionally, if Frodo and Sam move, you have to do a search. The bad guys are searching for them, and they might find them or raise a threat. You roll these dice, and they have 2 different types of things. One of them is lose hope. The other one is move Nazgul to where does Sauron live? I forgot the name of that place, but to there. I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot and I'm forgetting terms. I should know these things, but whatever.
These are not things I have enough lore to be able to tell you one way or the other about.
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah. And it doesn't matter to that region. That's a possibility. Like, oh, that's a great thing. I happen to be, there's a bunch of Nazgul where I'm at, and I just wrote a search, and instead of bad stuff happening to me, they left. Woohoo, that's great. But the bad stuff, like I said, is you lose hope. So if searches happen often, you may keep losing hope until you run out. Destroying the ring, once you play the 5 cards, you're going to do a search roll. It's a little bit different. You're gonna roll 1 die per Nazgul in that region where you're at, plus 1 die per orc in that space where you're at, plus 1 die for each point of hope you've lost. You remember I mentioned the hope track starts at 6, goes down to 0, goes up to 8. If you have 6, that's 2 dice extra you got to roll. So you're going to roll all these dice up to 7 total because you only have 7 dice, and lose all the hope it says to lose on your die roll. And if you did not die, you have won the game. If you did die, sorry, you lost. Middle-earth is lost. That is basically the game. Like I said, it's pretty thematic. It's really neat doing all this stuff to end it destroying the One Ring in Mount Doom with that dice roll that may succeed or fail depending on how you've been doing and how much you got going. And it's really exciting to have all those different combats in different areas, and fighting off the orcs, and you know freeing the White Wizard's tower, and all these, and Moria maybe, and defeating not the Nazgul, the Balrog and Moria, and having the orcs advance into different areas and trying to hold them off, and the battles at Minas Tirith, and all this stuff. It just feels really thematic, and it's really exciting as all that is going on, while slowly the hobbits work their way to Moria, to not Moria, to Mount Doom to destroy the ring. Why can't I remember the name of that place? I should know that. That's shameful. It really is. I did mention, I didn't really talk about it. I've mentioned a couple times. I kept saying Sam and Frodo move or do stuff. So two of the characters are actually double characters. Sam and Frodo is a single character in the game, but it's two little people walking around together. So whenever you move them, you're moving both Sam and Frodo together. They don't have separate actions or anything. They just act as a single character. Same for Merry and Pippin. They are a single character together. I just think it's interesting. I guess kind of thematic, because they did pretty much, in both cases, always stay together as a group. So that's the game, Julius. What do you think? Does it sound like regular Pandemic to you?
Basically, I mean,
kind of.
it sounds like a mix of some of the expansions thing or some of the other variants.
Mm-hmm.
One of them mean that there's a different set of objectives, that instead of having the normal objective, just completing all the disease or whatever it is, there's different objectives, and you can pick. So the game has a slightly different goal on each occasion.
Mm-hmm.
It also has, it has that if you have too many diseases, it takes over a spot. So if you have too many of the shadow troops that take over a spot, and it's got the big old guys moving around, which is perhaps a new thing. But
I
from
haven't
what you're
seen that
telling me,
before.
it's the big old guys, the Nazguls.
Yeah, the Nazgul. Yeah. I think that is new. I haven't seen it in any of the other games. Now I haven't
Yeah.
played all the legacy ones, and I haven't played the Star Wars one or the World of Warcraft. I haven't played that one either. That's another one. There's a bunches of them.
I mean, it sounds like a Pandemic variant.
It is,
It sounds
but it is
like a
really
very similar.
thematic. It is super cool. It's Middle Earth. It's Lord of the Rings. Man, if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, it's fantastic. I think it's like the best game ever. I've enjoyed it a lot. The last game I played was really great, and it got tense. And at the end, I had to make that dice roll, and suddenly, like I couldn't really sneak in anymore, and I had to sneak in, and I had run out of cards to be able to do the sneaking. So my hope kept getting lowered little by little, and then it made a roll, and some Nazgul got pulled into that area, which I still can't remember the name. And then I made my final roll, and it was just all really tense and exciting, just down to that last dice roll to see if you win or lose. And I guess that's part of what makes it neat. It's always down to the last die roll that ends the game. And I'm not saying it's random. Everything that leads up to that point is going to have a huge impact on how well you do in that dice roll. If you've done everything well, hopefully your hope track is really high, and you don't have to roll many dice. Or even if you're rolling 4 dice and your hope is at 5, so you're going to win no matter what, stuff like that. So it is really fun. It's really thematic and exciting. I think it's a great game personally, as a Middle Earth fan. Now let's talk about the solo version. It works exactly the same, other than one big change. And this is sort of like the other Pandemics. I know there's rules for it for playing solitaire. You're going to play as 3 characters. There's 3 players. Now, instead of having 6 characters out, like 2 per player, like you would in a 3-player game, you're going to have Sam and Frodo and 3 other characters. Each time you go, you're always going to have Sam and Frodo moving, and your other character. Sam and Frodo always does once. Your other character does the 4. So that character goes with Sam and Frodo. You do the draw cards, bad stuff. You go on to the next character. Sam and Frodo does 1. That one does 4. You draw your cards, and so on and so forth. That works really well, and I've played it that way solo. I haven't, which is interesting because when I play Pandemic, I always play Pandemic just like if I'm a 3-player. It's a 3-player game, and I just play like normal. I know there's solo rules, but I haven't used them. Where solo rules, you have a single hand. When I play Pandemic, I have 3 characters with 3 hands. This one, I'm playing with the solo rules with a single hand, and doing it that way. There's a couple other small tweaks that are restrictions for solo play, and a couple other changes that affect things that wouldn't work in a multiplayer game, like trading cards and stuff like that. But It works really well. I like it fine. I do find it much harder that way than if I'm doing 2 players. I'm not sure exactly why. I don't think it's because of the way the characters work. I've played with my son 2 players, and I haven't played 3 player. This is effectively a 3 player game. Maybe 3 players is harder than two, and that's why solitaire is harder than two. But it's definitely playable solo, and it is fun and it's interesting. And at some point, I'll try it as a 3 player game solo.
Do you prefer playing two-handed or solo?
For Pandemic, I usually play 2-handed or 3-handed. Most when, but this one, I'm just happy playing it solo,
Interesting.
and I haven't changed it yet. Yeah, I don't know why. I didn't think of trying it differently for whatever reason. I was just excited to play it and see how it went. Because again, I'm a huge Middle Earth Lord of the Rings fan. I am such a huge fan. I can remember the name of Morder the whole time I recorded this. Yeah, like I said, it's a really great game. If you like the Lord of the Rings, I think you'll really enjoy this game, especially if you also like Pandemic. And if you're not sure if you like Pandemic and you're still really confused by everything we've said here, enter the contest, right? Albert at oneplayerpodcast.com. Tell me about your thoughts on Lord of the Rings and or Pandemics, or honest, whatever is topical for you. And you're in. Now, we'll say we don't usually get many entries in our contest, so your odds of winning are pretty good if you enter. There we go. Yeah, a free used copy of Pandemic. Okay, so it's not a great prize, but hey, whatever. It's the thought that counts, I guess. I hope.
Well done, Albert. Well done.
Thank you.
Just don't throw it into any lava fires or anything like that.
Hey, whatever the winner does with it is up to them. If that's how they're going to celebrate that, so be it.
So, Albert, let's say that I'm not a Lord of the Rings person, which I'm not. Let's
Okay.
say that I don't own any copies of Pandemic at all. Would you recommend this one over the other Brazilian Pandemic variants?
You know, when somebody asks, say, "Oh, I've never played a war game before. I want to try playing a war game. What kind of war game do you recommend?" The answer is invariably pick one that you think sounds thematically interesting to you. You're more likely to enjoy that. And I think the same applies here. I think all Pandemics are fine games. Pick whichever you think sounds most interesting. That being said, probably the cheapest one is the base Pandemic because you could buy that anywhere nowadays. It's available often. You can find it at thrift stores, for example, right? I've seen at least 2 this year, honestly, at thrift stores. So you could probably find a cheap copy.
Not including the one you're trying to give away.
Not super cheap copy. And if nobody enters, I will take it to my game store and put it on consignment and sell it for $10 or $15. So you could also come to my game store, Boardwalk Games, and get it for $10 or $15 if nobody wins, and still a good deal. Yeah, but really, I think they're all fine games and they're all fun. I haven't played them all at this point, but I played many. I mentioned, when I told you I compared it to war games, this game does feel a lot like a war game. It almost feels more like a war game than a Pandemic, and it is a war game. You have battles on different fronts that are advancing and moving back and that sort of stuff. It is based that the way the cubes move is based on the Fall of Rome Pandemic, which is also a war game. That one is a little more pandemic-y than this one. But yeah, it is. I think this is definitely a war game. I think it would not be unreasonable to call it that.
I see.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I know.
Possibly even the War of the Rings.
Kind of like that, huh? I've never played that one. That's probably a good game.
Neither have I.
Yeah.
But perhaps in Fellowship we shall play it together.
All right, there we go.
All right, I'm done pulling out references.
Thank
Have
you.
a great evening, y'all.
All right, bye-bye.